All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Again, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. I did not expect to have this guest back on so quickly. You guys know him, Dr. Curry Myers. He was just on with me earlier in the week on Larry Elder's show when I was sitting in for him. And then, honestly, that very night, later that evening, this murder took place. This assassination essentially took place in Washington, D.C. So I'm glad and I'm sad to have him back, quite frankly, given what we're going to talk about here. But I'm speaking of none other than Dr. Curry Myers. You can find him at drcurrymyers.substack.com to find all of his writings. We were talking about one of the Substacks that he had written just the other day. We'll get into that. But Doc, welcome to the program. I want to get your initial thoughts on what has happened in Washington, D.C., with essentially these two Israeli staffers being assassinated in cold blood.
Well, it's number one. Thanks for having me on again. I really appreciate it. It's a sad day. I'm concerned for our country when citizens and visitors to our country can't walk around and be in peace. Washington, D.C. has had many crime problems in recent years. They still haven't addressed them. I think with the new district or attorney general that's assigned there, there's going to be some headway done. But we live in America, and it's amazing to me that we have anybody who's killing anybody based on their religious creed in this country. This is a country of freedom, and it's quite frankly embarrassing. So this is a perfect example of what we talked about earlier in the show. It's linked to some other things, and you've had me on the show before, and it's linked to those things too. This particular person actually walked in to the place shooting, had a handgun and was shooting, and he, after he killed the two people, he walked out, sat down, he threw away the handgun, walked down, sat down and indicated, you go ahead and call the police. And he waited there calmly, not aggressively, waited there on a bench outside the Jewish Museum until police showed up, which goes into another level of darkness. These young aspiring people one was an American citizen, and our state is hurt tonight because she's a Kansan. So wow. We take those things personally when a Kansan's involved. The other is a Jewish citizen. She was an American citizen. They were soon to be married. Supposedly, according to friends, he was going to ask her to marry him sometime this week or next week. But they were able to die together. There was immense love there, and they were able to die together, which is something.
Right.
But it's a sad day. But when you go back to this problem that we're continuing to see, it's this modern progressive ideology, and it's an affection for the antisocial criminal. And the reason I bring this up, Carl, is that we have allowed these things to happen. We've allowed this kind of behavior to foster. We've allowed this kind of behavior to fester in the communities. We're allowing it to occur in college campuses with little to no arrest or discipline or responsibility.
I'm very
happy to see what happened today with Harvard. I think there should be other colleges should suffer the same consequences. I am aghast as someone who is involved in higher learning that colleges allow this kind of behavior to occur left unchecked. There's no discipline. There's no standards. And they're not following their own guidelines that they have when it comes to student behavior. And most of the people who come aren't even students. They're shadow figures that come into this country illegally, or they have been suffering from okophobia. And if you remember, you had me on the show one time talking about okophobia. And that's the hatred of one's own culture. And it elevates offenders as victims. It excuses violence under the banner of equity. And it views lawful authority as oppressive. And so here we got all these phobias. We have all these things that end scientifically, and I hate to get scientific about it, but it's coming to fruition. The reason mental health practitioners call these things certain things, certain behaviors is because they do exist and can be manifested. And so we got this combination of this okophobia involved with pro-mortalism that's occurred, as what happened in the California deadly shooting at the fertility clinic.
Doc, explain that real quick, because you're actually hitting all of these things that I want to circle back to. I mean, great minds think alike, I guess. At least I like to think I have a great mind. But when it comes to the educational thing, it's so funny. I was going to circle back to that, but just for clarification, please explain. I had Doc on the other night, Dr. Curry Myers. Get his Substack, drcurrymyers.substack.com. drcurrymyers.substack.com. Subscribe to his Substack. Listen, the guy he knows law enforcement up and down. He was the sheriff of one of the largest counties in the United States.
In the Midwest.
In the Midwest. Thank you. Federal, state, local, now at Benedictine College as a professor teaching criminology. I mean, the guy knows his stuff, but he's also a great writer. And I got to be frank, some of the stuff that he's gone through and seen is just, I can't even fathom. But this guy creates different people for different things. But his latest Substack, The Dangerous Logic of Anti-Life Extremism, and he explains the Palm Springs bomber that a lot of media simply isn't talking about. And what I contend, Doc, and what I mentioned the other day, we see this social contagion, and I want you to explain what pro-mortalism is. I didn't even know what it was, frankly, until I read your Substack, pro-natalism or natalism as well. But what we're starting to see, and what scares me about this particular, I'm calling him an assassin, Doc.
Sure.
What scares me, we're starting to see this stuff with the elite. I grew up in the hood, Doc. This isn't somebody that I would consider a killer. Or you would think some Ted Bundy type. Didn't strike me as that type. I am seriously concerned about what I see is, whether it's social contagion, social media, leftism, academia. It seems to me that the left is starting to train or to create killers. I may be going too far, Doc. If you want to call me out on it, I have no problem. I will reel me back in if you need to. But when I heard about this murder, this assassin, I thought about you right away. I thought about this Substack again. And honestly, I'm baffled. And I'm like, I think things are going to get worse. So if you could, that was a long rant here, Doc, but just real quick, break down what pro-mortalism is, natalism, and just a quick synopsis of the Palm Springs bomber before we get back to this assassin in D.C.
Well, pro-mortalism is a hatred for life. It's a hatred for one's own life. As a matter of fact, that killer in the California said, all life is worthless. My life is worthless. He was said to have said something similar to that. It's basically cultural nihilism. So it's one of those where life just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what happened. There's no higher being. Who cares? The thing about pro-mortalism is it's not just I hate my life, but I hate your life and I hate all life. Wow. So therefore, life shouldn't exist. So it's elevating death really as a mercy. It's reducing, crime to some existential angst, I suppose. But when you have these kinds of situations, whether it's from abortion to euthanasia to leniency for killers, it's the value of life that's in retreat that we're seeing. And it goes back to formation. We haven't been formed correctly in recent years. Where, as you know, I've talked about this often, that the three pillars of society, in my opinion, for a good society is faith, family, and formation. And we have millions of people who are not getting formed correctly. They don't have people in their lives that are forming them from the beginning. And you can be tilted towards the dark side and the dark psychological traits as a result. So my biggest fear is that we are growing these no longer children, but people who haven't been formed correctly, and they've been involved in these social contagions, and the social contagions because of the internet and social media. It's the dark tetrads, which is Machiavellianism, narcissism, and certain psychopathies and sadism that can occur. And as I wrote in my book, The Advent of Feral Man, we're seeing that kind of criminal now. We're seeing a different type of criminal than what we saw 15 or 20 or certainly 50 years ago.
It's crazy.
And they happen to be, and dark tetrads can especially affect males 25 or under.
Okay. All right. So we only have 20 seconds left in this block. I want to remind you guys to please subscribe to his Substack. I mean, all things criminality. This is the guy that you want to read. drcurrymyers.substack.com. drcurrymyers.substack.com. Doc, when we get back from the break, I want to touch on this pro-mortalism and this void that I think the left is feeling. I want to get your take on that. You are listening to the Carl Jackson Show. We will be back in a few. All right. Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you about My Pillow. As you know, our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Guys, I love his products. I'm not going to lie. Mike is, well, of course, I won't lie about this in particular. All right, so Mike is offering the best deal on his Giza Dream bed sheets right now. Any size and any color is just $49.98. You can even get queens, kings, split kings, and cow kings, any size and any color for just $49.98. Order now, because when they're gone, they are gone. Also, for a limited time, when your order is over $100, you will receive $100 in free digital gifts. So call 1-800-858-0263. Use the promo code Carl. Again, that number, 800-858-0263. Use promo code Carl, C-A-R-L. I don't spell it like the communists. Go to mypillow.com. Make sure you use the promo code Carl for the amazing offer of $49.98 on the Giza Dream Sheets, any size and any color. Again, that number, 800-858-0263. Promo code Carl. All right, welcome back to the program. Please subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, Rumble, Salem Podcast Network, wherever you go to get your podcast, The Carl Jackson Show. Also, Doc, you have a show. Tell people where they can go to find you beyond your Substack.
I also co-host a radio show in San Bernardino on KMET every Tuesday. It's called the Lou Desmond Show, but I'm often I guest host. I've developed into a guest host and set in for him, and I never thought I'd be doing those kinds of things. But we call it Criminal Justice Tuesday with Dr. Curry Myers, and I invite guests from across the country. Last night we had, or on Tuesday, we had Hannah Myers, no relation to me. She's the criminal justice director for the Manhattan Institute, which is a very well-known institute, yes, very conservative. She's done a lot of work on New York City State. We've had Chad Bianco, the sheriff of Riverside County, who's running for California governor. And we've had child pedophile hunters. We have a detective that comes on monthly that talks about updates on captures that he does. So it's a lot of fun. I post those on my Substack as well, so people can actually see all those things. I'm also on Spotify. So if you look at America Criminologist, and I just started a new podcast that's on Spotify and Substack as well. It's called Wired to Kill. And I dissect serial killers. So I take a serial killer and I actually go through the different victims that they had, and we actually kind of play the role, if you will, I take on the mindset of the serial killer and try to explain morphology of that particular serial killer. And we'll talk about crime scenes and kind of the psychological makeup of that person. So I just started it, but it's something that I wanted to do. They're quick segments. They're only about 20 minutes long, but it's called Wired to Kill. So both on Spotify and Substack.
Guys, somebody's got to do it. Somebody needs to get this man a television show. I think
the last one I did was on H.H. Holmes. He was America's first serial killer, He stocked the Chicago World's Fair grounds. He had a hotel and a lot of chambers and rooms that were pits, and he killed a lot of people as a result of that, and dissected the bodies.
Oh my goodness! I actually watched a documentary on him. It's been years. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to have to sleep with the lights on, Doc. So I appreciate you sharing that. But anyway, all right. So let's circle back to this assassin. I was telling you before we went to the break. You were explaining what pro-mortalism is. Here's what I'm concerned about, Doc. I think we have a lot of these people like this assassin that murdered these 2 Israeli staffers. Just a horrible crime. And it was just so crazy. He goes back into the museum. He asks for a bottle of water, or is offered a bottle of water as well. He speaks to the receptionist. Unfortunately, I don't have the video. And then basically alerts her of who he is, what he's done. And I mean, she doesn't even know how to take it. Thank God.
No raise in his voice. He didn't change the lilt in his voice. She thought she was talking to somebody who witnessed it.
I mean, it's scary. So it brings me to this question, Doc, and I think this goes back again to your Substack, The Dangerous Logic of Anti-Life Extremism. Here's what I'm thinking, and I don't think I asked this properly the other day when I was sitting in for Larry Elder. Okay, so I think we live in a society now, or in a culture now, where you have a lot of young men and ladies too, frankly. But I want to focus on young men that perhaps, just like you say, the formation, faith, family formation, no one that's really in their lives of forming good, wholesome, valuable thoughts, godly thoughts, if you will. And then you get these leftists that pour into these empty vessels. I feel like if people are godless, they don't know their purpose on this earth. They don't know that there's a higher being, or don't submit to a higher being or a higher calling. I believe that the left can take advantage of these people. And I feel like that's what's happening. That's why when you mention what Trump did with higher education and with Harvard, saying, hey, listen, guys, as a matter of fact, just don't bring any foreigners back to your you're not going to be allowed to bring foreigners back to your school. And a lot of people are saying, okay, Carl, how can he do this? This is an infringement on free speech. Guys, we literally have people that are calling for intifada on these college campuses. We just saw one take place.
Yeah, and the vast majority of them aren't students. They're allowed on the campus. So this goes to two folds. Number one, it shows how important immigration law is. How important immigration. We've had immigration law forever, since the founding of our country. So it goes back in time to the fact that we've used immigration for specific things. And it's important. It's an important law to follow. So number one, we're not following immigration law. At least we weren't. We are now. But you can't go back and, we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 million people altogether. I think it's probably higher that have come into this country. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 150,000 known bad actors in this country that came from terrorist countries. They were known that to slip through the cracks and were in this country that are unaccounted for. We're starting to arrest some of them. But let's conservatively say 5% are high-level criminals, 5%. And I think that's low. But let's be conservative with it.
Okay.
That is a lot of people that could come into this country to do ill will, to foment violence, to actually commit the violence. Look at what happened. We had 19 come into this country, and the effect that they did when they took down the World Trade Center, when they attacked the Pentagon, all those things just by the use of using airlines. And now we've let people come into this country. We've let them embed into this country. And as a result, we don't know where they're at, and they're difficult to control. On top of that, you have college campuses and administrative staff that aren't holding people accountable to the discipline within their own rules and regulations.
Right.
Because they have these things. So it's this it's the left's continued hostility to law and order. whether it's discipline on the campus, whether it's not following rules and regulations, or whether it's outright violations of the law. This started happening in 2014 with the hands up, don't shoot phenomenon that
right.
occurred in
Yeah,
St.
Michael
Louis,
Brown.
Missouri, and in Ferguson, Missouri, which was all based on a lie,
Right.
never occurred. And law enforcement has been under attack since then. And when you put law enforcement under attack, these are foundational things that can, if you place them under attack and weaken them, it weakens a nation. If you take immigration law and weaken it, that weakens a nation. If you take the military and mess with that, that could weaken the nation. All these organizations that have been around for centuries can be attacked from within and from outside to weaken them to they no longer play a role. We've had radical DAs refuse to charge people. We've had prosecution of political activists that haven't been violations of law. We've had Catholics that have been surveilled by the FBI. We've had parents that have gone to school board meetings that have been surveilled and have been investigated for things. Now, all these things are going to change. We have a new FBI director. They're doing a wonderful job, but you can't stop things on a dime. And so we've had, I just wrote a Substack on parole. We don't have parole anymore, right? We did away with it because we thought it was not fair and because judges were too lenient. We completely blew up parole. So now we let people out and and nobody's supervised, Carl. So we're letting people out because wokeism has occurred in the criminal justice system. And it used to be, if you served time in prison for murder and you served 40 years, you had to serve 40 years. But what happened? Progressivism got in there and said, no, you can do good time. You can get out in 20 or 15. And so people get out and there's no supervision. But when you look at the data, and the data is important, for violent offenders, recidivism rates are above 65% now. So that means 65% of the offenders, if they get out, are going to recidivate and get back into trouble, and usually serious trouble again. And Carl, nobody's watching them. We're waiting until they're having. Now, that's not evidence-based at all. And so this is this attack on the criminal justice system that's occurred, and we're getting weak as a country as a result of it. And the president, bless his heart, there's a lot of things that are being done that are good. But as you take these rocks off, you uncover even bigger rocks underneath a lot of times.
Yeah, that is a great point, Doc. If you could stick with me for one more segment, I'd appreciate it. We only have 30 seconds left in this block, and we need to talk about some solutions because we need some hope out there. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you mentioned the parole situation, and we're not even talking about the illegal alien criminals that we've ushered into the United States that are going to do God knows what. So Trump has a huge task ahead of him, and frankly, I think everyone. I don't like to be paranoid, but I think people need to be on guard. I really do believe that times are going to get worse before they get better. I'm speaking with my guest, Dr. Curry Myers. You guys stay tuned. Oh, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. I did not hear the countdown, but welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. All right, again, I'm joined by my guest, or with my guest, Dr. Curry Myers. Make sure you check out his Substack, drcurrymyers.substack.com, drcurrymyers.substack.com. And I'm assuming, Doc, all of the new things that you're doing, people can find on your Substack, including Wired to Kill, a new podcast that he has going, which honestly, his resume is very extensive. I remember, guys, if you never saw my first interview, I believe it was with Dr. Curry Myers. We were talking about the where did that college murder report was that Iowa?
Moscow, Idaho.
Idaho. Yeah. Okay, so that occurred in Idaho, and this was before the alleged killer was found. And Doc was just saying, listen, given this information, this is probably the way it's going to happen. It's probably this type of person. And they caught the guy. and everything this man said was right on point. And I was like, we got to bring that guy back. We've got to bring him back. So anyway, drcurrymyers.substack.com. He's very good at what he does. And frankly, this is a calling. God has people in certain places and in certain venues to do certain things. They're called to do certain things. He's obviously called to deal with law enforcement, the psyche of criminology and murder and everything else that has to deal with law. So you guys make sure you check him out, drcurrymyers.substack.com. All right, Doc, so let's circle back to this real quick. Again, going back to this DC assassin, this is a guy that went to the University of Chicago. He worked for a nonprofit, I believe originally. He later worked for some type of, I want to say it was a medical, I forget what it was, but something to do with health. The guy's a smart guy. He's an extremely smart guy. But at some point, he was indoctrinated. He was also a part of the Socialist Liberation Party. Apparently, he was a protester that had protested in front of the home of former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel when it came to, I think it was a black man that was killed by a police officer in Chicago, and whatever that story was. So he was one of the protesters there. I think it is a really good thing, circling back to what President Trump has done today in announcing that Harvard will not be allowed to bring in international students. Excuse me. I think that's a good start. But I think academia has been so corrupted. I think they're just indoctrinating a bunch of crazy leftists. And frankly, we're seeing now the level of indoctrination. These guys can turn into trained killers.
No question. And higher learning is culpable in many ways because we've allowed it. Listen, Carl, you know my background. I wouldn't want to, but if I wanted to go work at a public university, I wouldn't get hired because of my conservative philosophies. And one of the reasons is, as you know, I talk about the importance of faith, family, and formation, and the nexus of criminal action as a result of not being formed well in those three areas. I would probably get called before the dean every day after I finished class.
Wow.
And
right.
I wouldn't last. And nor do I want to go work for them. I mean, I'm in a Catholic college where I can actually speak these things freely. I have freedom to speak about these things. As a result, my students learn. And as I walked into my class every semester and I say, I'm here to talk about the realities of life, and there is no question I will not ask. And I'm not going to lie to you about it. So hold on, maybe some tough talk, but I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm thinking. I'm going to back it up with whatever research has occurred. And at the same time, we pray before every class session. And I care about the students, not only because they're students, but I care about them because they're humans, and I want to see them succeed well, and I want to see them glorify God in the work that they do someday down the road. So I'm there for them, not only then and now. So we don't have that kind of, in general, we don't have that kind of mentorship in many ways with kids today. They're just a number to go through. We're paying $60,000, $70,000 a semester, a year. As a result, focused deterrence has not been applied on the colleges at all. And what I mean by that is they continue to get grant money. They continue to get special funding from the United States government. They're not held accountable for really any of it. They're violating the standards of women and women athletics every day, and yet they receive money. They've embraced every social contagion, Carl, that is in vogue. They've embraced it fully as a result, and they still get federal monies. And that's because nobody, until Donald Trump stepped into the plane and said, this is enough, we're going to have focused deterrence, and you're not going to get money. And people are going to go, oh, well, I guess we better moderate our behavior. It's the same thing in law enforcement. If you commit a crime, you get arrested, that's called focused deterrence. And it not only affects people, but it affects the mindset of people going, oh, if I do this, I'm going to get arrested. Maybe I shouldn't do it. If you don't have focused deterrence, you're going to have people go, I'm not going to get arrested, or
Yeah.
I'm in a place where a prosecutor at and doesn't charge me. Oh, I don't worry because I'm not going to be charged. As soon as America goes back to the beliefs that they've had before, and we've implemented focused deterrence, and I'm not saying if you make a mistake, we all make mistakes. Second chances occur in our belief system, right? We have beliefs to believe. Everybody has a second chance. We offer second chances. We don't offer 10th chances. We don't offer 15th chances.
Right.
That's not how the system works, or you're going to get played big time. And then you have, on top of that, you have this embracement. The left has embraced evil. They've embraced dark empaths like Luigi Mangione.
Yes.
They've embraced.
Glad you brought that up.
They've embraced killers. They've embraced serial killers. They've embraced criminals, and they've vilified victims. They've embraced criminals, and they've vilified police officers. And I'll be the first one to say law enforcement doesn't do everything correct. But 99% of the time we do. We have our bad actors, and we deal with those bad actors. You would ask people on the street, and they say law enforcement use of force occurs all the time. Of the 30 million interactions that police have every year, less than 3% end up use of force. And that's any kind of use of force.
Right.
Not just shooting somebody, that's any kind of use of force. And less than 0.5% end up being some sort of shooting that's engaged. But if you ask the public, they would say, oh, there's probably 10,000 people a year that are shot and killed by police.
Honestly, even more. I watched a recent video of Officer Tatum, and he was talking to some protester on one of these college campuses in California. And he said, hey, police kill at least 90,000 people a year, Doc. This is what this student said. And Officer Tatum was in shock, and he was like, Google it right now. How many people died at the hands of law enforcement last year, or were shot? Not even died, that were shot. And it was about 1,000. And he said the same thing, millions of stops, about 1,000. Heather McDonald talks about this. John Lott talks about this stuff. Right. But it's insane. These people are indoctrinated. I'm glad you brought up Luigi Mangione. We have less than 2 minutes. We got to fix this stuff. You got people like Mangione. I hate even mentioning his name. Now we've got this assassin or alleged assassin that have just killed these two Israeli staffers. My wife reminded me, you've got these people that are literally setting themselves on fire in front of embassies. These people are so empty, and the left is filling them, and the world is getting more dangerous. The United States is getting more dangerous. How do we change this, Doc? And how do we protect Jews? I am scared for Jews in America, Doc. We only got a minute. That's a lot to handle in a minute, Doc, but I'm going to trust you.
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, we have to get back to focused deterrence, and we have to have zero tolerance on this kind of behavior. Yeah. You're going to be arrested, and you're going to go to jail, and you're going to be prosecuted to the fullest length of the law. That's number one. That's the thing that we have to have. Second, we have to understand the importance of reining in colleges that are not behaving correctly either. And I would say public schools as well. This isn't just colleges. We have public schools that have failed miserably.
Right.
They haven't prepared the children at all, and they're even being allowed into college as a result. So those kind of things have to be worked on. The good news, there is a light of good news, is in the last year or so, we're seeing a turn towards Christianity again and faith-based as a result of some of the youth. Because you know why? Because humans search. We search for what is good. Yeah. We search for something that's better in life and a higher being. We're being called to that, and we're lucky because I feel like we're on the edge of something and we're turning it around. But if we don't pay attention to this, Carl, we're going to lose big time.
That's a good way to end, Doc. And listen, you've got a lot of empty vessels out there. We've got to fill them instead of letting these lefties fill them with their nonsense and craziness. Doc, I appreciate you joining us again. God bless you.
God bless you. Appreciate it. Stay safe.